Greetings everyone, this is TFN. Let's review the main findings of the past 360 days. You can expect the deepest sunken ships, scary mummies from Peru, the process of domesticating chickens, and other discoveries. It will be very interesting, but before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon. We will start this episode with one of the most famous archaeological sites in the world, Stonehenge. For a long time, it was thought to be a construction from the time of King Arthur. Later, a theory emerged about the ancient Romans, but it was only closer to the beginning of the 20th century that it became clear that Stonehenge is older than it seems. Now we know that it began to be built as far back as the 4th millennium BC. Astronomer Norman Lockyer proved the astronomical orientation of Stonehenge. If we connect the stones with lines, they converge at the points of the sunrise on the days of the summer and winter solstices. But the exact purpose of Stonehenge remained a mystery until 2022. Was it a prehistoric observatory that functioned as a calendar? Many indications suggest this, from the points of the sunrise to the fact that the theoretical arrangement of the stones allowed for the tracking of eclipses, as well as weeks and months. But there are also problems, since Stonehenge was rebuilt at least 4 times, and there were no known calendars in human history that matched the system of stones. On the other hand, there was a theory that Stonehenge was simply a place for rituals and burials. Allegedly, each stone belonged to an influential family that had the right to bury their dead under it. This theory was refuted by the fact that one of the few skeletons found was dated to the 7th century BC, by which time Stonehenge had already stood for several millennia. But in recent years, we have come very close to solving the mystery. In 2020, it was revealed that some of the stones of Stonehenge were brought from quarries 30 kilometers away. Given the weight of 22 tons, it is not appropriate to speak of technical backwardness in the construction of the structure. In 2021, Professor Timothy Darville from the University of Bermuda finally found a suitable calendar for Stonehenge. His research proved that the circle of stones allows tracking of a year with a length of 365.25 days, consisting of 10-day weeks. A similar system was used in ancient Egypt, which hints at links between remote regions, but in 2022, the ritual theory was also confirmed. On January 24, the results of the study of Stonehenge using magnetic induction were published in the journal Science Direct. And it turned out that the entire area near the monument is full of prehistoric pits. Literally prehistoric, the oldest one being about 10,000 years old. A total of 415 pits were found. And some of them are obviously hunters' traps for prey. But another part raises questions. 9 pits that were excavated after the study showed scientists remains of stone hunting tools and at the same time ritual artifacts. Moreover, 2 pits for the ceremony were dug 5,500 and 5,200 years ago, just before the construction of Stonehenge. In general, we now know that the monument was most likely a calendar. However, it was built in a very popular place where people hunted and held ritual ceremonies. Therefore, Stonehenge was probably also part of the rituals after its construction. We are moving on and shifting to World War II. On October 25, 1944, the largest naval battle of World War II was raging in the Philippine Sea. About 250 ships and nearly 2,000 planes were involved in the battle between the American and Japanese fleets. For the first time in the war, the Japanese used kamikaze tactics, and the battle began with a foolish mistake by Admiral Kurita. The Japanese conducted a brilliant deceptive maneuver, which was taken by American Admiral William Halsey. However, Kurita simply did not believe that the trap had worked and did not send the world's largest ship, Admiral Yamato, to shred the unprotected escort destroyers, which were called tin cans in the US due to the lack of armor. As a result, the battle was lost, and the Japanese fleet did not carry out such large-scale operations anymore. But several American ships were still sunk. We are interested in one of the tin cans, namely the destroyer Samuel B. Roberts. The press called the ship a destroyer that fought like a battleship. The tiny ship was hit by at least 1 torpedo and 600 shells from superior forces. But at 9 o'clock in the morning, it received a hole with a diameter of 12 meters and was ordered to abandon ship. Of the 210 crew members, 120 survived, and the Roberts sank in a very inconvenient place, at a depth of 6,895 meters. But surprisingly, on July 22, 2022, the wreckage of the ship was found on the seabed. As it turned out, it broke in 2, but both parts settled on the bottom just 10 meters apart from each other. At present, the remains of the destroyer are the deepest ever found by humans. The second ship found in 2022 is also unique in its inaccessibility. This time, it's not about depth, but about location. The Endurance ship sank off the coast of Antarctica in 1912, and its story is legendary. The three-masted barkentine was built in 1912, and it was destined to conquer the icy continent. To clarify, we are talking about a sailing ship with minimal protection compared to modern vessels. Endurance, along with another ship Aurora, was part of the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition, whose goal was to cross Antarctica and reach the South Pole. The task was incredibly difficult, even with the progress made. But the team had the legendary Ernest Shackleton, who participated in the first expedition to the South Pole. He was eager to make history, but problems began to arise on the approach to Antarctica. In the Weddell Sea, the ship was trapped in ice. For 3 days, the crew fought for the ship. For a moment, it was -27 outside, but the sailors pumped out water and tried to patch the holes. In the end, on October 27, Shackleton gave the order to abandon Endurance. The heroism of the expedition leader is evident from the fact that none of the crew members were injured. Shackleton managed to save everyone and even some of the supplies from the already sunken ship. And on March 9, 2022, 107 years after the ship's demise, it remains where it was found, at a depth of 3,008 meters. The year has been quite fruitful for underwater archaeology. In June, the Greek Ministry of Culture announced the discovery of a marble head of Hercules at the site of a Roman shipwreck. The head, which is twice the size of a human, was being transported near the island of Antikythera 2,100 years ago. Interestingly, the Antikythera mechanism, an ancient computer used to calculate the positions of celestial bodies, was also found on the same ship. Now, the ship can officially be considered a source of priceless discoveries. The head of Hercules was discovered while dismantling boulders nearby. Due to the depth of 50 meters, even professional divers find it difficult to do so. So, it had been lying unattended for over 100 years. The next discovery is purely terrestrial and related to chickens. In opposition to a popular belief, chickens are in fact a very interesting animals. They can count, have language, and communicate well with each other. It is also interesting that chickens were domesticated quite recently, according to various estimates, from 3,000 to 7,000 years ago. The oldest sample was found in Hebei province in northeastern China and dates back to the end of the 6th millennium BC. But even more amusing is the fact that before being domesticated, chickens probably lived in trees. This is where the research by Oxford scientists comes into play. First of all, it states that humans domesticated chickens later than previously thought. Contact began only 3.5 millennia ago, and all previous bones were just a coincidence or errors in calculations. Moreover, in Europe, chickens were not introduced until 800 BC. And for the first time, they were domesticated on the territory of modern-day Thailand. The DNA of 863 live chickens unequivocally showed that their ancestor is the Bankiva junglefowl. It lives in Southeast Asia, so everything fits perfectly. Moreover, the junglefowl lives in trees, unlike domesticated versions. These guys can fly quite well. Scientists went further and a clear chain was formed. In places where the oldest chicken bones were found, there were rice fields. It turns out that the ancestors of domesticated chickens descended from trees precisely because of rice. That's such an interesting fact. And in conclusion of the episode, we will go to Peru. In 2021, a mummy of a man with his hands tied and covering his face was found there. Experts in aliens and Anunnaki immediately joined the investigation, but in reality, the only unusual thing was the pose. Mummies were not only in ancient Egypt, but also in Peru. However, the pose, embryo position, and ropes that were used to secure the unfortunate person raised questions. In February 2022, answers were found. Firstly, they specified the age of the deceased from 20 to 40 years old. Secondly, they found a suite next to him, which was sent to the afterlife together with the man. It looked quite eerie. In the tomb, 6 tiny skeletons wrapped in fabric were found. At first, archaeologists thought they were figurines made of wood or bone. But it turned out that the 6 skeletons belonged to small children. It is doubtful that all 6 died at the same time. It looks more like a ritual sacrifice. And it turns out that the tied man found last year was actually very influential. This is also hinted at by the nearby found vessel, a female skeleton, and the remains of animals similar to llamas. Apparently, as in ancient Egypt, someone in Peru was sent off with everything they needed. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a comment.